Move on to the business case for emotional intelligence. Why is emotional intelligence necessary? It's not just something good to have in business, but it is something critical, mission critical. So we'll see why. Okay. Before that, let me share a story of termites. Do you know what are termites, right? Yeah, those insects that eat wood. Yeah, we don't have wooden chairs here, alhamdulillah, so you don't have to worry about termites. But it was actually a person called Louis Terman and his termites. Yeah, so because of his name, last name, they called it termites. He had a thesis. He had a hypothesis that it is a high IQ people who are the movers and the shakers in the world. Yeah, they are the people who are going to be the top of the cream of the crop in every single field, who are going to shape the world, who are going to change the world. So he wanted to prove his theory. So he selected about 100 plus high IQ students, very high IQ, right? Maybe 150 plus or something like that. So Einstein was 160, 170. So you can see they're like very high level, high IQ people. And he followed them for how long do you think for his study? Give me a guess, quick guess. 1 year? Somebody said 6 years? 10 years? 20 years. So one of the longest research, right? 20-year research of his life he spent on this one to follow them to see if his theory would be correct or not. So after 20 years, do you think his hypothesis was correct? No. After the study, he found out that 1/3 of the people, yes, they were the movers and shakers. They were the top. They were the cream of the crop. Yeah, 1/3 of that study number. Another 1/3 was average, nothing special about them, just an average you and me, normal person. Yeah, nothing special. The other 1/3, the last 1/3, they were what society calls materialistically abject failures. Yeah, they were failures in their professional life, they're failures in their personal lives. Yeah, so then that cracked his hypothesis, that cracked his theory, what he had in mind. So what was that X factor? What was that factor that differentiates those movers and shakers? So after some deep pondering, he found out that it was social intelligence, or what we call today as emotional intelligence, right? So this is one of the critical studies that really changed the management studies perspective on where to prioritize. Yeah. Later on, there was a study done by Hayes McBurr. There's a HR consultancy based in the UK, and they did studies from 40 companies they analyzed, and they found out that of the competencies that distinguish people on high performers, about 1/3 were cognitive, mental competencies, but 2/3 were emotional, were emotions related, behaviors, competencies like being able to motivate others and so forth. Yeah. Another study, about 286 organizations were studied globally at different levels of management, and 21 general competencies distinguishing high performers from average performers was identified, and the most for the senior level of management. And they found out that out of those 21, only 2 were intellectual competencies and 1 was technical. The rest 18 were actually emotions related competencies. So you can see, subhanAllah, how significant and impactful it can be. So in a famous book, it's a small book on EQ called EQ 2.0. So Travis Bradbury, he mentioned, and Gene, that a little bit effort spent on EQ to increase your EQ can have a wide-ranging positive impact. A wide variety of things like trust, excellence, quality, empowering people, motivation, decision-making, flexibility, being adaptable to change, compassion, stress tolerance, listening, respect, communication, and all of these things are related to emotional intelligence, right? So emotional intelligence is like the root. I know you have a root diagram over there as well, with Iman, of course, is the base of it. But in terms of emotional intelligences, you have the competencies of AI, which we'll get into soon, and they lead to all of these different, branches and roots and fruits that will give you a wide-ranging success in different areas of your life, personally as well as professionally. Okay, so far so good. All right. So inshallah, you're convinced, right? And lastly, this graph explains that, as you grow from you fresh out of university and you join the workforce, initially, yes, your intellectual skills, your conceptual skills and technical skills will play an important role, a greater role in landing your first job and landing and performing well in that job, right? But as you grow from an individual contributor to managing people, to becoming a supervisor, or to becoming a senior level management, more and more your emotional intelligence will play a bigger role, and these intellectual and conceptual and technical skills will play a lesser role in determining your success ability in those roles. Yeah. So Daniel Goleman, a famous author and one of the thought leaders in EI, he mentioned that 85% of a manager's success will come from emotional capabilities. So if your goal IDP is to move from being an individual contributor to get into a team lead, supervisor, to inshallah eventually senior management, then this is something that is critical for you. Yeah. And regardless of your personal, of course, in your professional and in your personal life to succeed as well with raising children, as a spouse, and other roles in the community and so forth, this will be a critical skill as well for any leader. So yeah, this one we talked about. So now we will go into understanding. Let me do a quick check on time. All right, we'll finish this section and then we will take a break, a short break, and then we will take a longer break for Asr, inshallah. Yeah, during Asr time. So understanding emotional intelligence. Now that we have this business case for emotional intelligence, is everybody convinced that it's beneficial, or somebody still has doubts that EI is beneficial or not for business? Everybody convinced? Thumbs up? All right, excellent. So now we'll look at how we can understand this a bit deeper. Yeah, what is EI? What is emotional intelligence? What are emotions, and what is emotional intelligence? Let's get into understanding that, and then we will take a break after that. Bismillah. All right. So in the Quran, it's mentioned وَأَنَّهُ هُوَ أَضْحَكَ وَأَبْكَى, and it is He, that is Allah, that is God, who makes us laugh and weep. So it is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us as an ability, as a gift actually, to feel happy or sad or experience feelings. Now just imagine that you cannot experience emotions. How would life be? Dull? Boring? Sorry? Numb? What do you think? Empty? Men's side? Yeah, emotionless still, right? Maybe like a robot, maybe like just machines, working and going and talking and everything, but there will be no flavor to it, right? So that's exactly true. So we don't think emotions, we just feel it. Yeah, it is something like a signal, like that electricity signal. It's a pulse that you feel, but it's not something that you think. It's not from the brain. Yeah, it's a source of energy, a source of information. It is a reaction, and it cannot reason on its own. Yeah, we cannot control, we cannot stop the emotion, but we can choose our response to how we react to the emotion. Yeah, we can change that once a trigger happens. Now, there was one person, there's a New York, and he was a very successful lawyer, yeah? And now this person, he got into an accident. He got into a car accident, and his brain was damaged somehow in that accident, right? Impacted. And then he went to some of the top doctors, and he tried to find out what was going on. And they tried to look at him, the tests and everything was fine. They said, you're okay. We can't find anything. So then he went back, and after a few months, he lost his job. He was a top lawyer, yeah, and he lost his job. He couldn't perform as he used to perform. After a few more months and after some time, then he lost his wife. And then he's like puzzled, what's happening? What's going on with my life? Then he tries to find and research the best doctor that New York has. And then he found one of the top leaders in the world, Dr. Antonio. So he went up to Dr. Antonio, and then he did his initial analysis and tests and everything, asked him questions and tried to do some scans and everything. And then he could not find something wrong. Then he asked him at the end of the appointment, okay, what time would you like to come next week? And what do you think was his response? Sorry? I don't know. Close. Yes. What do you think was his response? Huh? I don't want. Okay. No. His response was that he gave the pros and cons of every free slot in his calendar for next week, but he could not make a choice. He could not decide. Subhanallah. So why do you think that is? Because a part of the brain was damaged, which was dealing with emotions. So what made you choose the color of shirt that you wanted to wear today? Was it your analysis, thinking skills? you felt like wearing blue today, for example, right? So that's what it was. It was his emotions that help us to drive and make a decision. Yeah. So when that part of the brain was damaged, he was unable to choose in such a simple decision like, what time you want to come next week to meet. So subhanallah. So that's how life would be without emotions. Yeah. So, it's one of the ni'mah. Maybe not a lot of us, we give shukr and thank Allah for that. So maybe that's something that we can do today, is to thank Allah for this ni'mah of being able to feel emotions, right? So, alhamdulillah. And in a way, it colors our memories as well. Maybe you had a nice vacation recently, right? So anybody went somewhere interesting? Terengganu, or maybe you went for Hajj or Umrah recently last year. So when you think back about that experience, about that vacation or about the Umrah, what feelings do you get? What memory do you get? Right? The joy, pleasantness, and happiness, and so forth. Right? You spend. So then, what decides, what colors that memory? It's your emotions that colors your memory, right? So the things that our memory is also colored by emotions. You think about somebody and he's really rude to you, right? So whenever you think of that person, you feel angry, you feel disgusted, or something like that. So it's that memory, that feelings that's coloring your emotions. So sorry, it's the emotions that's coloring your memory. Yeah. So that's something we need to learn about emotions. So the bottom line, the takeaway is that we cannot stop emotions. We just feel it, but we can choose our reaction to it. Right? We can choose how we react to our emotions. So let's keep that in mind as we watch this quick video. Many of you might ring some bell, right? So when did this happen? What was this background? What is this incident? World Cup, which year? 2006, right? 2006. I'm sure many of the men, or most of them, are familiar with this one. What about the ladies? Are you familiar with this? Some of you, most of you? Excellent, mashallah. So Zidane, 2006 World Cup. Who are the two teams? Italy versus France, right? And this is the final game for the captain, Zinedine Zidane, and this was his first and last chance at winning the World Cup for France. Yeah, and right in the critical time, what happened? He did what he did, and then he got disqualified. He got the red card. Right? He headbutted him, and he did that. Yeah. But what was the background story that we did not see in the video? Why did he do that? Yeah, he was furiated, right? Infuriated, angry to the highest intensity because of what